Well, good afternoon, everybody. Here we're going to get started with today's webinar. Today we will be discussing how to set up new users in Management Reporter. This isn't going to be a fairly long webinar here, but this is one that we do get a lot of requests to handle here at Implementation Specialist, so I thought it might be a good idea to kind of cover it and show you it here. I do have everybody on mute for this webinar here. So if you do have any questions, there is a little questions field in your webinar toolbar. Just go ahead and type them in there. We'll cover the slide deck first, and then we'll kind of walk through within the actual Management Reporter itself here. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Unlike Microsoft Dynamics GP, which uses SQL credentials, Management Reporter uses the same active domain directory that is used to manage access to the computers on your network. This means you can grant access to Management Reporter without having to set up users in Dynamics GP. So you're not having to buy additional licensing within GP or within SQL. And once they're hooked up on your network and in your active directory there, you can certainly just get Management Reporter installed and get off running. All right, to add new users, you're generally going to have somebody that has the administrator role in assigned them. We'll just cover what the roles are in a little bit here. And this is done within Report Designer. Over on the left, they have the similar navigation pane like you do see in GP. And what you want to do is click on the Security tab down there. And that'll bring it up, and you can then right-click in the user field and go New, or another easier way here is just to go to, at the top, go to File, New, and User. And again, you'll have to have the administrator privileges to access these windows. And here's what the new user window looks like. And it's a fairly simple setup here. We'll cover each of the tabs. We'll start with the general company access and then groups here. The reason we're doing a little backwards from what's up there is groups kind of affects what's in company access and company access back and forth here. And a lot of people don't use groups. A lot of them just grant access directly to the companies here. All right, in the username field, enter the domain and the user's name to be added Management Reporter. Or you could just simply type in their name and click on the search or check names button here. Those of you that have set up Windows security and folders permissions are familiar with that process. You're going to select one of the roles as a starting point for configuring your security and access. It's not possible to modify security roles within GP, but you can individually modify everybody's security direct on that user, on the modify user or the new user window. It's basically the same window. It's just new if they're new, and modify if they're currently existing users. Under optional permissions, you can remove or add additional permissions as needed. You can also edit permissions of current users or disable accounts completely from that window as well. We'll kind of hop back here. So you see the optional permissions, edit scheduled building blocks if you use those, or the XBRL filings to an authority. Those are kind of permissions. And then down here, the permissions granted, and we'll cover the roles next here. Generally, what you do is when you select the role here, it'll determine what by default comes down there. And there are 4 roles, not rules, excuse me. Viewer, they are able to view already generated Management Reporter reports. Generator is able to generate new reports based on currently designed reports. The designer is able to design reports and definitions, row, column, tree, and report definitions in the report designer. An administrator has full access to everything. So basically, it's the role can always run and do what the above role can generate. So a generator can run the reports that you currently have designed, but they can't make new reports, or if they notice something's not reporting correctly, they can't hop into Report Designer to fix that. They have to go to somebody that has the designer role. Administrator, one thing I do want to point out is anyone with the administrator role has access to the configuration console. That is the SQL, the connection between SQL and Management Reporter. It'll show how everything's integrated here. So generally, you kind of do want to restrict that. Plus, it's basically what you'd equate a power user to in GP. You kind of want to make sure that that gets limited. All right. And then like GP, like I said, we'll hop over to the company access here. You need to grant access to the specific companies that they're in. Like I said, most people just use the selecting the companies directly on the company access tab of the modify or new user window. If you have somebody assigned to view and you come in here and you try and click on any of these, nothing's going to happen because generally viewers do not have access to specific companies. They can just run the reports. So what it is when they come in here, they're not going to need access to it because the reports generally should already be pointing to a company or companies, and then they can just run those. And that's pretty much here. And then you'll see this column here, inherited from group, and that is what we'll cover here. If you have a lot of companies within your setup, and you have certain users or company roles that would access certain companies, say you have 20 companies kind of broken down by 5 divisions, you could set up 4 groups in Management Reporter, column division 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that way you can make sure you can just quickly assign them. To do this, again, you need the administrator role. You want to go to File, New Group, enter name and the description on the General tab. Add your current MR users, if applicable. If you're creating a group, you can automatically add the users to them. Or you could add the group on the Modify New User window. So there's not a lot of needs to jump back and forth here. So if you break up your companies for reporting purposes here and you create the groups, you can easily just assign your Management Reporter users that currently exist to the group, so you don't have to set one up and then jump back and forth between windows. And here's what the 2 windows look like here. Test companies, access for development here, and those of you that are familiar with us here at IS know that Tim does a lot of our dev work here, so I just went ahead and added him in there. And then you can see on the user setup here, when you click this, you'll see the group name appear in there, and you can just check that. All right, and we will get to the demonstration here. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and pause here, see if anybody has any questions. All right, I am not seeing any questions here, so we're going to hop over to, those of you that are familiar with my webinars know that GP 2013 test box here is kind of my little playground, so we're going to hop into here. I already have Management Reporter launched. And here I've got 3 companies set up in my system here, the Fabricam, 3 Amigos, and 4 Directions. So in order to do users, like I said, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can go down to the security, and then in the users window, you can right-click and go to new user, or you can right-click, left-click, sorry. No, right-click. My directions are horrible. You can modify or delete existing users by right-clicking on them, or you can create a new one up here by going to File, New, and User here. So either way will bring you to the same window. And you can see up here. So the screenshots I had were before I cleaned up. I forgot I had to refresh all of my GP instances on this box here just due to a lot of testing and data integrity and stuff here. And I was having problems getting Management Reporter itself to run. So I had to go with this, and because this, I had to redo the Management Reporter. So Tim's not in there anymore. So we're going to go ahead and add Tim in. You can see there here. Just go ahead and add him up there. We want him to have the design roles. You can see down here the permissions granted changed. Like I said, the ones that are checked by default. There really isn't a way to change that Management Reporter. But if we want to prevent it or do something else here, like he's going to have company administration access here. Oh, I guess it doesn't give that to you. Oh, I do apologize. It was letting me actually do this, but then again, like I said, my previous Management Reporter was behaving weird before I did the refresh this morning here, and I was able to check and uncheck those. I was able to do these, so maybe that was just part of the damage. I do apologize. I did not mean to mislead you here. I should have double checked that after the rebuild to make sure everything worked here. But you can do the company access here. You see each of these. Or we can just add them to groups using our testing group. And one thing I'll show is you can see it's inherited from the group. Well, down the row, we don't want him to have access to the 3 amigos, but I am clicking on this repeatedly here. As you can see, it won't let me remove access if it is inherited from a group. So the 2 ways that we could do this is to either remove him from testing and add him to just the Fabricam data, or we would have to edit the group. If you edit the group, what will happen is the changes will roll down to all users in that group. So if you have a lot of companies in the group and you need to remove just a few people from that, you might be better off creating a new group for those few users and then just assigning them that group and removing them from the old one. I'll show that to you here. Or just removing the group and then just granting the access here. Let me watch one more thing here. Again, I do feel bad about what I said earlier about being able to change those permissions. But yeah, I am clicking on the access with the viewer role assigned. I'm not able to get anything. So that is still behaving the same after my refresh here. Unfortunately, you have to disregard about being able to change these. I guess there isn't a way to change it. As you can see, the designer brings in more, and then administrator does bring in everything for you there. And that's pretty much all it is. As soon as you are set them up in here, if Tim has Management Reporter installed and is pointing towards this box as the server, he would now be able to launch Management Reporter normally. It only takes a few minutes there to get it set up. And that's pretty much it here. It's actually fairly quick and simple. If you have, especially like I said, you have to have that administrator role here to set up the new users. But that is it. Like I said, this is going to be a fairly short one, but this is one we do see a lot of requests for. So I thought it'd be a good idea to cover it here. So if you have any questions. All right. Does not look like there's any. Again, I do apologize about the misinformation. Like I said, I noticed this morning when I was running through it that my MR was behaving very oddly. So on the refresh, I must have damaged the security on that old build. I do apologize about that. But we did confirm that you actually cannot change those permissions outside of the 2 up of that little scroll box here. You can certainly, when they're not grayed out, you can certainly select and change those as needed. And then to disable it, you can simply just change in the role. It'll always give you a pop-up when you change the role. So if they can do something they can't later, that way you'll know why. And so if you do have any questions here, please feel free to contact us. Our office is 218-486-5095. You can email me directly, scott@iscorp.biz. Or you can go directly to our support box, which is support@iscorp.biz. And be sure to check out our website here for additional webinars that are coming up. All right, with that, I would like to thank you all for joining us here today. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'm going to go ahead and try and give you about 45 minutes for probably most of you your lunch breaks. All right, thank you very much and have a wonderful day.